Hey everybody, it's Carrie B. How are you today? Welcome to Fresh Face Friday. I'm trying something new today. I'm going to talk to you actually. We'll see how this goes. But I'm going to do a 90s kind of grunge makeup today. I got a new shirt and it's kind of inspiring me. So I'll show you the back. Hold please. A little 360 moment for you. Okay, anyway, let's start this makeup. I'm gonna start with my favorite. This is MAC Pro Longwear Concealer. I use this as my foundation. And I mix two colors, NW20 and NC15, so that I can get the perfect mix. And I'm gonna apply it with the 170 brush. So one major modification will be the eyebrows. As you guys have seen from many of my Throwback Thursday photographs, I had no eyebrows in the 90s and somehow they all grew back. Most of the time because your eyebrow hair is not regulated by hormonal hair growth. If you tweeze it all out, it oftentimes will not grow back. But I guess I stood in line twice for hair because I have so much superfluous hair I have to deal with, but I did get my eyebrows back. So thank goodness, and they're gonna be a little thicker and bushier. I prefer them to be a bit more feral, so they're gonna be standing up somewhat, and hopefully they will stay up through this makeup tutorial. I'm gonna prep my eyes with a little bit of 24-hour eye base. This stuff really holds everything in. I would say in the 90s, because I was in my 20s, I didn't really need that much to hold onto product, but we mostly used the Studio Finish Concealer, which is an incredible product to base out your eyelid. I just need a little bit more staying power these days, especially since I wear glasses. So I'm using the 24-hour eye base, just kind of all over my lid, a little bit under the eye. This really helps to keep things locked in place. I have a screaming cat in the background, so I apologize now. I swear I'm not doing anything to him. He's just mouthy. So this is Coffee Eye Pencil. I do love black, and normally I would go right in with Feline, but I'm gonna start with Coffee. This is a classic MAC pencil. It's a really rich, if you're not familiar with it, it's a super chocolatey brown, but it's not too warm. And one of the things that's classic about the 90s is that everything was pretty cool toned. So that's why I'm starting with Coffee. You may have noticed in my application that I started inside the waterline. So I'm gonna do the same thing on this eye, just to get the most intensity and most depth at the lash line. And yes, it does make your eye look a little bit smaller, a little sexier. So it really does just depend on, you know, your personal preference, but I feel like this sort of heroin chic, if we remember sort of the Gucci ads, Calvin Klein ads of the 90s, it was all about that sort of hollowed eye look. And if we also think about what was happening musically at that time, it was very grungy. It was not about perfection. It was really about sort of a lived in, slept in, maybe you just had a little bit of a intimate moment with your significant other, and your makeup kind of just looked like it had been living on you for a while. So that's what I'm trying to achieve here. I'm using the 219 brush, which is, if you're not familiar, it's a little tiny like pencil-y tipped brush. And I'm just gonna go in and sort of smooth out those edges. Sometimes your finger is really your best tool. So the great thing about this makeup, especially if you don't have a lot of time, is that it's fast. Perfection is imperfected. So that's what I love about it. The 90s had this really interesting juxtaposition where some of the makeup was super perfect and really technical and tight. And then as we got to the later part of the 90s, it became a little bit more deconstructed, a little bit more lived in. And so that's sort of the area that I'm looking at today. My cat is gargling in the back. So I'm going to use Bougie Babe. This is a new color that's coming out with the Loud and Clear collection, which will be launching very soon. And I'm going to go right back in with that 219 brush. You don't need a lot of tools, just the right ones. And I'm going to go ahead and just apply some of this right on top of that coffee pencil. I love layering color in this way. I think when you're dealing with smoky eyes or different kinds of intensity, to build dimension around the eye, it's important that you layer texture and also color. So obviously the pencil's kind of waxy. Now I'm going in with a powdered shadow. This color is really warm. And I know I just talked about how the 90s didn't have a lot of warm colors, but this is a play on the 90s, so we can do whatever we want. That's the beauty of makeup. As long as it's blended and looks cool, and even if it's not blended, who cares? Just, you know, own it. So I'm gonna use a little bit on top of my eyelid as well, mostly for setting properties. When you set a pencil with a shadow, you get a lot more wearability. And I really just wanna kind of encase my eyes with this sort of roughed up, lived in, smoky liner. And I love using coffee and then this warm tone over top because it really makes my blue eyes pop. And that's basically all you really need to do. So I'm gonna throw in some mascara and we'll check back in for the rest of the face. I'm using the Extended Play mascara. I love this mascara because it's waterproof, but it's warm water washable. It's really great for lengthening and separating. I wouldn't say it's a volumizing mascara. As with my eyebrows, I have pretty good eyelashes, so I love this formula because of the way that it wears and the way that it makes my lashes really defined. But because, again, we're doing a little bit of a 90s kind of grunge feel, I'm gonna go a little heavier with my mascara than usual to get it kind of clumpy and, for lack of a better terminology, kind of fucked up. So next up, you all, if you watch my videos, you know I love this palette. This is the Studio Fix Contour palette. I'm obsessed, and you can see that taupe has been like completely used. This was probably one of the biggest selling products that we used in the 90s was taupe and Harmony and Strata. Those were some really good blush colors. Cubic, if you remember, if we're really gonna go back there. But I would say Harmony and taupe were two of the biggest sellers and products that people came to us for when I worked at the counter. So I'm using the 168 brush and I'm just gonna carve out my cheekbone a little bit. Good rule of thumb is take your 2 fingers to the corner of your mouth, and that's about where you want it to end. I always start back here at the tragus of the ear and kind of just hug that cheekbone. And I like to use it as a little bit of blush, so I bring my contour up a little bit. A lot of people just like to do a line. I actually will hug my entire cheekbone with this color. And hey, if you had the cookie last night, just go ahead and take a little bit on your chin. And your jawline. Works wonders. So in the late 90s, highlighting wasn't really a thing, but one amazing product that came out of the late 90s, 1998 to be exact, in Earth Goddess, was Cream Color Base. So even though we didn't see a lot of highlighting until then, we were really like, you know, studio fixed out to the max, to the nth degree of matteness. When these came out, everyone was sort of in a state of shock. They really didn't know what to do with them, but we know what to do with them now. So I'm gonna go ahead and just add some highlights in. Again, this is gonna modernize this makeup a little bit. And I'm adding just, you know, pings of highlight, a little bit on the Cupid's bow, tip of the nose if that's where you wanna highlight. I don't always highlight there because my nose is pretty pointy, but a little bit is cute. And then I'm just gonna go in slightly on my cheekbone, a little bit under the brow bone. I sure can talk a lot, can't I? Oh my. And cheek color was not that big of a deal in the 90s. I mean, I don't remember until, again, the late 90s, you know, doing a lot of color on the apples of the cheek and things like that. But if you were doing a pretty sculpted look, you kept it not pretty plain on your cheekbone. It's early, I'm sorry. So I'm gonna go ahead and use Tarnished Reputation just to keep this super easy. This is a patent paint lip lacquer. And I'm gonna come in and just do a few dots of this product just here on my cheek. I wanna keep this as easy as possible and keep it cool toned So I'm just gonna use my finger and kind of tap this in a little bit. Again, those icier, cooler tones I think give a good nod to the 90s. And we're gonna use the same product on my lips. So I'm gonna finish blending this and I'll see you back in a minute. Another gift from the 90s is Stone Lip Pencil. So I'm gonna use this today as well. One of my favorite tricks is to sharpen the pencil and then use a Kleenex. And I'm just gonna come in and squeeze the tip of this pencil. And what that does is it gives it almost like a carpenter's pencil edge, and it makes precision lining so much easier. So I always like to come in and start here at the Cupid's bow. And then I'll do a little bit here on the bottom. And that breaks my lip up into quadrants, and it just makes it so much easier to line them. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and I'll be back in a moment. All right, so I used the 242 brush. This is a really nice flat brush to kind of blend out the stone pencil and to clean up my edges. And now I'm gonna go back in with Tarnished Reputation. This is again a patent paint polish, and you know I love a lavender or a lilac. I definitely love a theme makeup. So I'm gonna come in here and just add a little bit in the center pout. I find that these colors and this product, a little bit goes a long way. So you can certainly pack it on and get this beautiful patent leather finish. I love that about this lip product, but just for the technique that I'm doing right now, I need to be able to control how much lipstick or lip color goes on into this liner. If not, it's gonna be all over the place. So it's definitely a build. And I also wanted to have that kind of 90s feel where the color is very cool and also a little bit matte. So the pencil is helping that. I'm obsessed with this color. It reminds me, if you guys remember, I don't know, if you've been a MAC user for a long time, we had a color called Relic, which is this beautiful gray iridescent, I don't know, purpley blurple something. It was just awesome. And Verve used to have this sort of a bit more of a taupey kind of shade to it. So obsessed. And again, using that 242 brush and just melting the liner and the lip color together. Yeah, there she is. And last but not least, I mean, no 90s makeup is gonna be complete without some Studio Fix. So I'm gonna come in and just add powder where necessary. You know, in my 20s, I wore this all over my face with a sponge over top of matte foundation. I can't really do that anymore. It's a little bit too dry for me to do that and a little bit too heavy at this point. I have too much texture on my face, but I love Studio Fix. It is one of the most tried and true MAC products. It's a lifesaver. When nothing else works, you know Studio Fix will. It's smooth and it's matte and it has coverage, and it's really, it's a very simple product in the sense that there's not a lot of ingredients in it. So it just works, you know? It's just one of those things where you're like, I know I've got the answer, and it's always Studio Fix. So if you haven't tried it ever, I can't believe that, but welcome to 2020. Get yourself some Studio Fix. So one last thing, I'm gonna use a little tiny bit of the Luna Cream Color Base just in the inner corners of my eye. Press those in. And then I think as a final sort of moment, I'm just gonna use a little bit of glitter. This is a Lemonhead product, just because I have it here. And I'm just gonna take a little bit into the inner corners of my eye, just to add, ooh. Just put it right in your tear duct. That's always the smartest move. Who needs to see? It's very overrated. It's very 20 16 vision. Okay, so I'm just gonna add a little bit more here, a little bit more here. I don't know if you guys can see that. All right, there we go. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this type of video where I'm actually talking through it. Leave me a comment, let me know, and I hope you guys have an awesome Friday. Bye.